It's a chilly night on December 20th, 1968, and we're near Vallejo, California. Picture this: a remote gravel parking area off Lake Herman Road. It's one of those spots where you'd think, this is so isolated it must be peaceful, but it's pitch black and eerily quiet. The wind's rustling the trees, and there's a sense of desolation. Now imagine sitting in a car here, surrounded by darkness, with nothing but the sound of your own breathing and the occasional distant bark of a dog. Pretty spooky, right? This is exactly where 17-year-old David Faraday and 16-year-old Betty Lou Jensen decided to park their car that fateful night. They were a young couple, likely looking for some privacy, just enjoying each other's company. Little did they know, their night would take a horrific turn.
Fingerprints and handwriting have been made to where we are certain that the man that we're looking for is the same man responsible for the killing of the cab driver in San Francisco, plus the shooting deaths in Solano County in Vallejo.
Bloodstains on a cab driver's shirt, chilling letters to newspapers, and a cryptic code that taunted the police. These are just a few pieces of the terrifying puzzle that is the Zodiac Killer. Between the late 60s and early 70s, this mysterious figure terrorized Northern California, claiming to have killed 37 people, but confirmed to have murdered at least 5. How did one person manage to elude capture and become one of the most infamous serial killers in history?
Sergeant, could you briefly describe what apparently happened last night?
Yes, we had a double homicide that took place out on a county road about sometime after 11 o'clock last night. A double homicide involving victims were a 16-year-old girl and a 17-year-old boy.
How did this incident occur, apparently?
Well, they were shot.
What were the circumstances involved?
Possibly they were ordered out of the
Around
car by
11 p.m.,
the responsible.
their quiet evening was shattered.
The boy was
A
shot.
figure approached their car and without any warning started shooting. David was shot first right in the head at point-blank range. Betty, in a desperate attempt to flee, was shot 5 times in the back as she ran from the car. By the time the police arrived, Betty was found dead on the ground, about 30 feet away from the car, her body lying lifeless on the cold ground. David was still clinging to life, but would tragically die on the way to the hospital. It was a brutal, senseless act that left everyone in shock. At this point, no one had any idea this was the work of a serial killer. This was the first murder attributed to the Zodiac, but back then, it was just a horrific, isolated incident. The local police were baffled. It seemed like a random act of violence, a tragic event, but nothing that hinted at the horror to come. People in the community were scared, but no one could foresee that this was just the beginning of a spree that would terrorize Northern California for years. It's the night of July 4th, 1969. While most people are out enjoying fireworks, barbecues, and celebrations, there's a quiet, secluded spot near Blue Rock Springs Park, just a few minutes away from the hustle and bustle. This area is known for its peacefulness, a place where couples often come to escape and enjoy some privacy. The night is dark, with only the faint glow of distant fireworks. The park is enveloped in silence, except for the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant pop of a firecracker. It's the kind of quiet that amplifies every small sound. In this seemingly tranquil spot, 22-year-old Darlene Ferrin and 19-year-old Michael Mago were parked, likely talking and enjoying each other's company. It was just before midnight when their peaceful evening took a horrifying turn. A car pulled up behind them, and a man got out, holding a flashlight. The bright beam pierced the darkness, blinding and disorienting Darlene and Michael. Without warning, the man began firing a 9mm Luger into their car. The sound of gunfire shattered the stillness of the night. Michael was hit in the jaw, shoulder, and leg, while Darlene was struck multiple times. After the initial barrage, the attacker started to walk away, but then inexplicably returned and fired more shots into the car, ensuring no one was left alive. Darlene succumbed to her injuries, but miraculously, Michael survived, albeit critically wounded. Despite his pain and the chaos around him, Michael managed to catch a glimpse of the shooter, a moment that would prove vital later. Michael Mago's account of the attack is both chilling and crucial. He described the shooter as a young white man, likely between 26 to 30 years old, stocky, weighing around 200 pounds or more, with light brown curly hair and a large round face. This detailed description would become a key piece of evidence in the hunt for the Zodiac.
Vallejo Police Department.
I want to report a double murder.
May I have your
If you
name
go 1
and where
mile
you're calling?
east on Columbus
But the
Parkway,
horror didn't end
Wood
there.
Park.
Within an hour of the attack, the Vallejo Police Department received a phone call from someone claiming to be the shooter. The voice on the other end was calm, almost disturbingly so. He not only took credit for the Blue Rock Springs attack, but also claimed responsibility for the murders of David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen from the previous December.
You'll find kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye.
The caller provided specific details that only the killer would know, confirming his involvement. He directed the police to the scene and hung up, leaving a trail of fear and confusion in his wake. This phone call was a chilling reminder that this was no ordinary criminal. The Zodiac Killer was methodical, taunting the police and the public with his brazen communication. Imagine, it's a typical summer day on August 1st, 1969. The hustle and bustle of San Francisco is in full swing, with people going about their daily lives, blissfully unaware of the chilling mail about to be delivered to 3 major newspapers: the San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald. Each newspaper receives an identical letter, and as the editors open them, they are greeted by a terrifying message. Written in a scrawling, almost childlike handwriting, the letter begins.
Dear editor, I am the killer of the 2 teenagers last Christmas at Lake Herman and the girl last 4th of July.
This is no ordinary letter. It's a confession from a cold-blooded murderer. The letters are filled with specific details about the murders of David Faraday, Betty Lou Jensen, and Darlene Ferrin, details that only the killer could know. This proves that the letters are genuine and not some sick prank. But there's more. Each letter is signed with a peculiar symbol, a circle with a cross through it. This symbol, which looks almost like a target or a gun sight, would soon become infamous as the mark of the Zodiac Killer. Along with the confession and the symbol, the Zodiac includes a chilling demand. Enclosed with each letter are parts of a cryptogram, 3 different codes that the Zodiac insists must be printed on the front page of each newspaper. If the newspapers fail to comply, he threatens to cruise around all weekend killing lone people in the night, then move on to kill again, until I end up with 12 people over the weekend. The fear is palpable. The editors are now faced with an impossible decision: print the ciphers and give in to the demands of a murderer, or risk more lives by refusing. But the Zodiac claims that if someone can crack these codes, he will reveal his identity. The challenge is set. The Zodiac is playing a twisted game with the public and law enforcement. The ciphers become an obsession for amateur and professional cryptographers alike. People across the country are trying to solve the puzzles, hoping to unmask the killer. The Zodiac ciphers are a testament to his intelligence and his desire for control. He knows that by presenting these codes, he can keep the public and the authorities on edge, perpetually guessing and fearing his next move. The significance of these ciphers cannot be overstated. They are more than just codes. They are a direct line to the mind of a madman. The Zodiac's taunts and challenges add an extra layer of terror to his crimes, making it clear that he sees himself as superior, as someone who can do whatever he wants. Fast forward a few days to August 4th, and the San Francisco Examiner receives another letter. This one starts with a phrase that would soon become notorious.
This is the Zodiac speaking.
It's the first time the killer refers to himself as the Zodiac, adopting a moniker that would become synonymous with terror. In this letter, the Zodiac is more taunting than ever. He provides more details about his crimes, mocking the police and their efforts to catch him. He revels in the fear and chaos he's creating, almost as if he's enjoying a sick game. His tone is chillingly casual, yet full of malice. The letter also includes more cryptic messages and another piece of the cipher. The Zodiac continues to dangle the promise of his identity being revealed if the code can be cracked. The newspapers are faced with the same dilemma: publish the Zodiac's letters and ciphers or risk more innocent lives. Here's one of the most eerie and brazen attacks by the Zodiac Killer. It's September 27th, 1969, and the day is winding down into a peaceful evening. We're at Lake Berryessa in Napa County, California. Picture this: a serene lakeside where people come to picnic and relax. The air is crisp, the water is calm, and the setting sun casts long shadows across the landscape. It's the perfect spot for a quiet day out, or so it seems. Cecilia Shepard, 22, and Brian Hartnell, 20, were enjoying a picnic by the shore. They were lying on a blanket, chatting, and soaking in the tranquility of the lake. Out of nowhere, they noticed a man hiding behind a tree, watching them. Initially, it probably felt a bit odd, but nothing too alarming. However, as the man approached, the situation quickly turned sinister. This man, the Zodiac Killer, wasn't just any random guy. He was wearing an executioner-style hood over his head, with clip-on sunglasses hiding his eyes, and the now infamous Zodiac symbol, a circle with a cross through it, emblazoned on his chest. In one hand, he held a gun, and in the other, a long knife. It was like something out of a horror movie, but this was terrifyingly real. He ordered Brian and Cecilia to lie face down, and then he tied them up with pre-cut lengths of rope. After securing them, he began a brutal attack, stabbing them repeatedly. Cecilia was stabbed 10 times, while Brian was stabbed 6 times in the back. The sheer violence and randomness of the attack were shocking. After the assault, the Zodiac calmly walked back to Brian's car, and with a black marker, he left a chilling message on the door. Despite the savagery of the attack, Brian Hartnell survived. His detailed description of the Zodiac's appearance provided crucial insights. He described the Zodiac as a heavy-set man, around 5 feet 8 inches to 6 feet tall, weighing about 225 to 250 pounds. The message left on Brian's car was another horrifying element. The Zodiac wrote the dates of his previous attacks, marking the date and time of this latest attack. The signature Zodiac symbol was drawn beneath these words, a taunting reminder of his presence and his twisted sense of pride in his actions.
The first thing you told a deputy out there was to give some idea of a description of the man. Do you understand now how your mind was able to work that well under those conditions? You really did an exceptional job in that.
Well, through the whole thing, like I mentioned before, at the beginning, I did think I was going to die. And so from that moment on, one has to have certain goals that you have to set. The first goal, of course, was to live. I suppose the second goal was to get untied.
Brian Hartnell's perspective is one of incredible bravery and resilience. Despite being stabbed multiple times and witnessing his friend Cecilia's brutal attack, he managed to stay conscious and provide vital information to the police.
I considered him a robber. I had absolutely no thought that he was anything but that. And when we were at this robbery stage, I didn't consider any real threat to my life or to the girl or anything. I really didn't consider this, but I really wanted to help him. And
did he seem as though he would like your help at all?
No, he didn't, and he didn't even end up taking the money. But I
bear no grudge?
Well, of course not. I don't think that he was acting under his total complete consciousness. And when a man is, if you don't mind using the word sick, you can't hold this against them.
He recounted how the attacker spoke in a
calm,
calm, controlled manner, as if he had rehearsed his actions. The Zodiac's composure during the attack was chilling, showing no signs of panic or haste. Brian's description of the attack and the attacker painted a vivid picture of the Zodiac's methodical and calculated nature. His ability to survive and later recount the details of the horrifying event was crucial in piecing together the Zodiac's profile. Unfortunately, Cecilia Shepard succumbed to her injuries 2 days later, adding to the growing list of the Zodiac's victims. This attack at Lake Berryessa was one of the Zodiac's most daring, occurring in broad daylight in a public place. It highlighted not just his brutality, but also his boldness and desire to instill fear. Brian Hartnell's survival and testimony were key in understanding the Zodiac's modus operandi and his chilling approach to terrorizing Northern California. It's October 11th, 1969, a typical Saturday night in San Francisco. The city is winding down, but in the upscale neighborhood of Presidio Heights, something horrific is about to unfold. Picture a quiet, well-to-do area with rows of elegant houses and tree-lined streets. Paul Stein, a 29-year-old cab driver, is driving through this serene setting, having just picked up a fare. Stein's cab stops at the intersection of Washington and Cherry Streets, a spot that would become infamous. As the car idles, the passenger in the back seat suddenly pulls out a 9mm pistol and shoots Stein in the head. The attack is swift, brutal, and shockingly casual. Blood splatters across the interior of the cab as Stein slumps forward, lifeless. But the killer doesn't just flee. He methodically wipes down the cab's interior to remove any fingerprints and even takes a piece of Stein's bloodied shirt as a gruesome trophy. This level of cold calculation adds a chilling layer to the already horrifying scene. It's clear that this isn't just a random act of violence, but the work of someone with a sinister agenda. Now, here's where the story takes an even more dramatic turn. Across the street, 3 teenagers are looking out their window, their eyes widening in horror as they witness the entire scene. They see the killer calmly exit the cab and start to walk away, seemingly unhurried and completely at ease. The teenagers quickly call the police, providing a detailed description of the suspect. A white male, about 25 to 30 years old, stocky build, with reddish-brown crew-cut hair and wearing heavy-rimmed glasses. However, in a critical error, the police dispatcher mistakenly reports the suspect as an African-American male. This miscommunication would have dire consequences. Just moments after the murder, 2 police officers, Don Fook and Eric Zelms, are patrolling the area. They spot a man walking on the sidewalk who matches the teenager's description. But because of the dispatcher's mistake, they let him go without questioning. It's a gut-wrenching realization that they likely came face to face with the Zodiac Killer and let him slip away due to a simple yet tragic error. The story doesn't end there. Just 2 days later, on October the 13th, the San Francisco Chronicle receives another chilling letter from the Zodiac. This one includes a piece of Paul Stein's blood-stained shirt, a macabre token to prove his authenticity. The letter opens with the now infamous words, "This is the Zodiac speaking," and it's filled with chilling content. In this letter, the Zodiac not only takes credit for the murder of Paul Stein, but also escalates his threats. He writes about his plan to target school children next. He describes a horrifying
School
scenario
children are
where
nice
he would
targets.
shoot out the
I shall
tires.
wipe out a school bus some morning, shoot out the tires, and then pick off the kiddies as they come bounding out. That was the threat of the Zodiac Killer.
Just
Now,
imagine
every
the
day,
sheer
police cars
terror
follow the bus.
this instilled in the community. Parents were panicked, schools were on high alert, and the police were scrambling to prevent another tragedy. To make matters worse, the Zodiac included diagrams of bombs designed to blow up school buses, adding a new level of fear and chaos. The only person who has ever been named as a Zodiac suspect by the police is Arthur Lee Allen, a former elementary school teacher who was found guilty of sex crimes. Allen denied being the culprit in. Gray Smith suggested Allen as a possible suspect in Zodiac, based on hints and clues. Allen was the target of multiple search warrants over a 20-year period, and he had been questioned by police since the beginning of the Zodiac investigations. Gray Smith said in 2007 that Allen was selected as the most likely suspect by multiple detectives. All of the evidence against Allen, according to Dave Toschi in 2010, turned out to be negative. His taunts were not just about bragging, they were psychological weapons designed to keep the community and law enforcement on edge. The Zodiac thrived on this fear, using it to manipulate and control the narrative, showing that he was always one step ahead.